So most people know that Roy Thomas began his comic book career, so to speak, as a contributor and editor to Alter Ego, a fanzine from the 1960s. But did you know that Alter Ego is also the name of a superhero that Roy Thomas created in the mid-1980s? Stay tuned for the video.
Anachronic.
Hi comic fans, I'm Joe and welcome to Anachronic Comics. If you are a fan of metaphysical stories that explore the nature of comic books and their characters, you might want to check out Alter Ego, a 4-issue limited series published by First Comics in 1986. Roy Thomas collaborated with his wife, Dann Thomas, who co-wrote the series. Ron Harris provided the art, which captured the style and atmosphere of different comic book eras and genres. I happen to have all 4 copies. Let's take a quick look. Alter Ego number 1. Alter Ego number 2. Alter Ego number 3. And Alter Ego number 4. So Alter Ego tells the story of Rob Lindsay, a young comic book collector who finds a mysterious comic book and mask in an old bookstore. When he puts on the mask, he is transported to the comic book worlds of his favorite Golden Age heroes. He also becomes Alter Ego, a new hero who can travel between different comic book genres and realities. Now, this 4-part series is an homage to the history and evolution of comic books, as well as a commentary on the role of fandom and imagination. It also explores the concept of identity and how it's shaped by the stories we read and create. Rob Lindsay is not only Alter Ego, but I think he's also a reflection of Roy Thomas himself, who conceived of the character in 1961 when he was a fanzine editor and aspiring writer. Alter Ego was originally intended to be a fan-made superhero who would team up with other fan-made heroes in a shared universe. 2 fan-made heroes that I remember as a kid were the Eclipse, created by Ron Foss, who appeared in the original Alter Ego fanzine, and the Eye, created by Bill Joe White, who I corresponded with back then. And he published another popular fanzine of the time, Batmania, which you might have guessed was all about Batman. I had some of these issues, but as was the case with my Alter Ego fanzine issues, they disappeared at some point. However, the joint project never materialized, and Roy Thomas eventually went on to fame and fortune as a professional comic book writer for DC and Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at Alter Ego number 1 from May of 1986. On page 1, we see an introduction. Rob Lindsay is a high school student and a comic book fan. When walking with his friends, they discover a new comic book shop and decide to check it out. The owner is friendly, and the boys find a number of Golden Age comic books in mint condition. Rob picks up a copy of Alter Ego, a superhero from the 1940s that fought with other heroes against the Axis powers. Note that both Alter Ego's allies and villains will look familiar because they are Golden Age characters in the public domain. Ron wants to buy them all, but he doesn't have the cash. So the owner lets him take a box of comic books home on approval. As the boys leave the store, they bump into some mysterious characters who enter the store. The store immediately closes for the day, and Ron and his friends go out for a meal, where Ron reads Alter Ego and tells his friend about it. As they talk and eat their meal, they hear the boom of an explosion. Going outside, they see the comic book store that Ron and the guys just left burning to the ground. Ron had a feeling it was going to be the store and wonders about that premonition. Home at last, Ron is reading the books that he now can no longer return when his grandpa Charles comes in. We find out he is a widower and that Ron is living with him since his parents divorced. As Ron reads the comic book, it occurs to him that the Emerald Sorceress character resembled the woman with the mysterious men he bumped into when leaving the comic book store, but he discounts it. Ron goes to sleep, but is awakened by a dog barking at an unseen individual. Ron comes downstairs and checks outside, only to be surprised by some characters he saw in the comic book. He recognizes some of the bad guys, and one of them punches him. Then Captain Combat, a hero, and the comic book store owner comes to his rescue. As the bad guys retreat, suddenly Captain Combat slumps to the ground. Ron runs to help, but Captain Combat stops him and explains about a war going on his world in a different dimension 1,000,000 miles away. He states he is a casualty, but that Ron must use the mask or his Earth will be next. Then he turns into a two-dimensional sheet of paper and begins disintegrating as old paper might and blows away. Ron goes back home and falls asleep, only to be awakened again, this time by the glowing alter ego comic book he had been reading. Ron picks up the comic book, but this time, as he flips through the pages are blank, and a blue mask falls out of the book. He picks up the mask, remembering what Captain Combat had said. And as he glances at himself in the mirror, he sees alter ego pointing at him. He realizes that the hero wants him to put on the mask. When he does, he's instantly transported to a different world and has become the hero alter ego. He sees two individuals kowtowing to Hitler, Admiral Tojo and Mussolini from the 1940s Axis powers, and feels something is wrong. As he makes his escape, he falls down some steps and finds himself in a cellar where the heroes of the time are all imprisoned. They call out to him as their leader, which he denies, identifying himself as Rob Lindsay, to which they exhort him to find a key. The Emerald Sorceress confronts him, adding some facts to the puzzle, and tries to seduce him, taking off his mask. As she does, Ron goes back to being himself, surprising the sorceress, and is captured by the bad guys who readied him for execution with the other heroes. The other heroes see Ron and are confused as to his identity. As the firing squad counts down to firing their weapons, Ron sees the mask floating down to him. The mask breaks him free just in time and attaches itself to his face. He immediately again becomes alter ego and finds not only that the bullets bounce off of him and that he has superhuman strength, but he easily takes care of the firing squad, cheered on by the other heroes. To the anger of the Axis leaders, alter ego freed the other heroes who engaged the Axis army, while alter ego pursues the three leaders. We see Holy Terror, Double Dare, Scarlet Streak, Yankee Doodle, Skyboy, and Camille the Jungle Queen fighting the soldiers. Now, to you aficionados of the Golden Age, you will recognize these heroes as Black Terror, Daredevil, Silver Streak, Fighting Yank, Airboy, and Camilla the Jungle Queen. Alter ego catches up to the Axis leaders and with a super punch finds out they were only robots, which surprises him and the other heroes. Suddenly, a spirited apparition appears and shows himself as the mastermind behind the Axis powers, the Crimson Claw. The Claw admits defeat this round, but warns that he will win the war. The entire Nazi base collapses as the heroes run out of harm's way. When asked why he didn't fly out of harm's way, Ron, that is, alter ego, says, I guess I forgot. Obviously, he didn't know at the time that he had that power. It is then that Ron explains his situation, explaining the whole story from the beginning. Confused about his identity, alter ego removes his mask and finds himself back in bed, being called by his grandfather to get up or he'll be late for school. Ron sees the comic book and mask on the ground and picks up the comic, only to find the pages again having artwork and the story. As he pages through it, he is surprised to see the story matches the adventure he just had on the alternate Earth. He's confused, but feels that taking care of Red Claw was now left to the other heroes. Reading through the newspaper, he recognizes the US and Soviet envoys as the same two people kowtowing to the Axis robots in the other dimension, and now realizes his adventure was real and that Captain Combat's warning was coming true. The story continues in issues number 2 through 4 with some surprising twists. In 2011, to celebrate the Alter Ego comic book's 25th anniversary, Heroic Publishing released new editions of the original 4-issue series, plus a brand new 5th issue in which Alter Ego visited the world of crime comics. A trade was also published. Heroic Publishing has been working with Roy and Ron on 3 new issues to be crowdfunded by fans. Now, number 6 was scheduled to come out this past summer. However, I do not believe the funding goal was reached. I've included a link to Heroic Publishing in the description for those of you who are interested. Alter Ego is a rare gem that celebrates the medium of comic books and the passion of its fans. It's also a fun and nostalgic adventure that pays homage to the classic heroes and stories that inspired generations of readers and creators. If you're looking for a comic book within a comic book, Alter Ego is the one for you. Thanks for watching. Be well, and I'll see you soon.